will do a show. We're just rehearsing, and I had to, which is why I was in that crawl space grabbing a prop because I said I'd do it. Well, I didn't have time 2 weeks ago, and I said I'd do it last week, and I totally gapped. So then I woke up this morning and 3 in the morning going, yeah, and I didn't have time before work. So, well, I suppose if I got up at 3, I'd have time before work. Well, yeah. Because everything has to come out of the storage, and then it's like this tiny little hole. It's a massive trunk, and I have to get it on the way to Angular. Yeah. Well, they're doing it's cast of a theater, and so they wanted a theater trunk for costume. And so I'm like, so now it's in the backseat.
Good afternoon, everyone. The March 14th, 2024 Special Council meeting is called to order at 4:31. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelethat First Nation on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the March 14th, 2024 Special Council meeting agenda as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Hoare.
Seconded.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. We have one report item on this special meeting agenda, 4.1, Lot 13, Affordable Housing Development, BC Housing Partnering Agreements. This report will be presented by the Director of Planning, Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. I'm just sharing my screen here. Okay, there we are. Yes, this is Lot 13, the affordable housing project on Marine Drive. I think everyone in the room is familiar with it. The reason we're here is this went to council in December for authorization of a couple of agreements that are part of this, and essentially we're back here today for some reauthorization of some tweaks to the agreements. So I'm just going to briefly go through sort of how we got here, and then certainly can answer any questions. The report that's on the agenda has a bit of a timeline and a bit of that background, but this sort of goes back to what was sort of the expectations with the rezoning. So I know there's been some time has passed, and we have some new council members from when this started. Initially started back in 2019 with the sort of first steps of the rezoning, and so the Lot 13 affordable housing development is 33 fee simple small lots with homes. 22 of those would be ownership homes that the developer is developing in conjunction with BC Housing under the Affordable Home Ownership Program, or the AHOP program. And the other 11 homes are affordable rentals. And so there's a housing agreement and covenant that would go on the title of those, which essentially that was put in place as part of the rezoning. So the expectation, there's a covenant say that you will follow through and register this on title. And essentially it says that the owner of those units cannot live in it. It has to be a rental. Here's the criteria. Here's the rents. Show us an annual declaration of who's in there and do they qualify, and that they're, the right people are benefiting from it. So that's part of this. But really the agreements that are on the table here are more about the between BC Housing and the AHOP mortgages of those ownership units. And that program was really intended to get, people into home ownership. And so during the rezoning, so this is back prior to the rezoning, the property Lot 13 was earmarked for affordable housing as part of the master development agreement of Weyerhaeuser and the Ocean West development. So there was a covenant back in 2005 that was put on Lot 13 that said it will be used only for affordable housing. The zoning allowed for affordable housing, and it defined affordable housing as the CMHC definition of people making 80% median income spending no more than a third of their income on housing. And so that was there. And at the time of the rezoning, that was one of the first questions, was that restriction was had a certain price cap level on it, and that had been put in place in 2005, and time had gone by, and the land was sitting vacant and no housing was being constructed. And Mr. McLean came forward and had a arrangement with Weyerhaeuser to take it on and say, hey, I think I can do something using this AHOP program with BC Housing. And one of the first questions for council is the community supportive of changing that slightly to not necessarily be so restricted to the 80% median income, but really sort of meet middle incomes, median income, maybe a little more, and so that it meets the intent of the affordable housing, but not be so restricted to that CMHC definition. So during the rezoning, which started in 2019 and was ultimately adopted in 2020, the definition of affordability was broadened a bit, and that was part of those agreements. And so really it was sort of, middle incomes was what sort of the intention was, to be around median in Ucluelet or slightly larger. So that went from the sort of $68,000 level of household income to maybe, it was talking about like 85 to 95, depending on the size of the unit, was sort of the range that was being proposed at that time. And so last March, there was then, so 2023 in March, there was a request from the developer, and at that time, Ucluelet, and I should back up and say, for those who are listening or in the audience, the district is supporting the development through, initially it was a $350,000 contribution under the Affordable Housing Reserve. Last March, there was a request for additional funding and support, and BC Housing matches that. And so the additional support at that time, last March, was to cover some of the additional costs. So basically it's offsetting the costs of servicing, building the road and the water and sewer lines, but also some of the additional work needed in order to make sure the site is safe from flooding. And so that had some additional costs that had been identified. So there was this request. So the total support from the district is $650,000. Council supported that. At the time last March, BC Housing said, look, a target income on this project is $88,000 to $97,000, in that range. That's where we're looking. And so the council supported that, and it went off to the BC Housing Board for approval of the project. And so here we are. So in June, we heard that the project had been approved by the BC Housing Board. At the same time, they're now looking in more detail at the cost of construction and interest rates and whatnot. Particularly with the interest rates, they're wanting to make sure, okay, do we have a target where people can actually qualify for the mortgages to purchase these? So at that time, there was some adjustments. So it was talking about the range of $96,000 to $119,000 total household income as being what would be sort of the target audience of buyers, eligible buyers within Ucluelet, based on Ucluelet incomes. So on that basis, we started drafting these agreements. And so that $119,000 maximum household income is the language that we put in the first agreement, which we had drafted and gave to BC Housing in July. And so that was what it was, sort of the understanding, okay, this is what's been represented. In November of last fall, we got the second agreement back from BC Housing. So there's a bit of a lag there. Also had that same maximum $119,000 household income language and what was an eligible purchaser. And so we brought that to council in December. And so that's what had been authorized. And we had made it clear to them, if there's any change in this, it needs to have council support, because we need to be transparent about what the expectation is. So, so we were sort of expecting this to go forward. There's been some change on the side of the project in BC Housing. And so what's being requested now, because the AHOP program within the province of BC that BC Housing administers, their total maximum that they will look at is sort of the 75th percentile, which in other communities can be quite a bit higher than it is in Ucluelet. So their standard program is about $191,000 household income is kind of the maximum under that. And so they were asking to include that, and we said, well, wait a second, that's quite a bit more than what was expected all the way along through here. And so we had a call earlier this week to understand where they're at. And so where they are today, and the agreements are in place, and so the next slide is really where, meanwhile, I should say, back up a step. Since these agreements were underway, the developer has gone out and has looked for buyers and has pre-sales. And so the range of the actual incomes, of the total household incomes, is what's shown on the slide here. And so the 119,000, which was sort of what was being expected, the bulk, like 18 out of the 22, pre-sales are falling within that. But 4 of the accepted offers are for Ucluelet residents with incomes above that original, what was considered the max in the agreement. And that's where we had to say, whoa, that needs council approval. And so the language in the agreement would allow them to move forward with those 4 buyers who have more than the $119,000, and all the 18 other buyers who have qualified and have accepted offers, and the 11 rentals as well. The language does say it has that $191,000, which is quite a bit higher, standard BC AHOP program language in there. If they need to, if a deal falls through and they need to go back, they want the flexibility to say, for the first 60 days, the target is to keep it under the 119,000, that sort of Ucluelet middle income limit as expected. If they're unable to find another buyer, as long as they stay within that BC program, they want to have the flexibility to be able to sort of broaden the pool up into this sort of higher group of buyers, which, so that's a lot of information to throw at you, but essentially that's where it's at. There's been some adjustments. We're yes, recommending that this is not quite what was expected, but overall, looking at the spread of, they did get some special approval to allow some co-signers, we believe. So there's quite a range of incomes that are represented, I think, in the buyers. And, essentially, as we know, there's housing is needed sort of across the spectrum in Ucluelet. So I think overall it meets a housing need, but certainly that is up to council, and so we wanted to make sure it was transparent of what is sort of on the table, and how the project goes forward and whether it meets the community expectations. So maybe I'll just stop there and see if there's any questions from council.
Questions from councillors?
Sure.
Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, through the mayor, Mr. Gregg. Just so I got this right, it's like 119 up for 60 days, and then it goes to the more broad, higher income. Is that correct?
Correct. They have accepted qualified, the mortgage qualifications and whatnot. They have the 22 pre-sale buyers lined up. I believe some of them are in the room. And so this was really, yes, if any of those deals fall through and they're we're looking for another buyer, the developer has committed, for 60 days, we're targeting and have it sort of open to somebody, the priority given to someone who has a total household income of under $119,191, I think is the total. And so that has a sort of a 2-month window. If they can't find a buyer, then they can look and potentially, consider an offer from someone who makes more money.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
I think the developer does have a waiting list as well right now. I don't know what their income average is. I haven't asked that question, but it sounds like the 22 pre-sales are solid for now, as far as we know.
Through the mayor, as far as we know, yes. And I think I didn't point out the average of all, I think is $91,000 overall over all of the current accepted offers. But 4 of the 22 were above what sort of was seen as the line. So there's definitely in a range there, but we understand that they're all kind of good to go.
Yeah, and I think that was a misunderstanding on several parties' parts, not ours. But anyway, good to have that cleared up on Monday, finally. Any other questions? No? There are 2 motions recommended by staff. If anyone would like to
I would
take
love
that
to
on.
do this
Councillor Hoare?
from beginning to end. I think I did the first ones. I will move that council authorize execution of the Affordable Home Ownership Program Partnering Agreement between the district and the British Columbia Housing Management Commission for funding contribution in conjunction with the BC Housing Affordable Home Ownership Program. I assume they need to be separate.
Separate, yes. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I will move that council authorize execution of the project partnering agreement for the 33-unit development at Lot 13 Marine Drive between the district, the British Columbia Housing Management Commission, ACMC Holdings Limited, and Andrew Charles McLean.
Do I have a seconder?
Second that.
Councillor Kennington seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg.
I just want to say thank you for the little timeline. I'm looking forward to the block party. That is the very last item on your little timeline, Mr. Craig.
That was a bit of an assumption.
Right? I think we'll all be looking forward to,
I honestly thought these would be built and lived in by last year.
right?
Yeah. So, yeah. But we got it done. And congratulations, Mr. McLean. I know you're on Zoom. And may I have a motion to...
There's a hand raised.
There's a hand raised? Okay. Sure.
Mr. McLean, we're going to unmute you right now.
He seems to have lowered his hand now.
Are you going to unmute him?
Mr. McLean, you're unmuted right now.
There he
Hi,
is.
guys. I just wanted to say thank you to district staff for continuing to make this priority and to council for believing in this project. It's been 5 years since we've taken it on, and we're looking forward to moving forward.
We'll look forward to watching you move forward.
Here we go. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, thanks. So may I have a motion to adjourn the March 14th, 2024 special council meeting?
So moved.
Councillor Kennington? Second?
I'll second it.
Councillor Hoare? And this meeting is now adjourned at 4:47. Oh, all in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.